Diana Reyes had been awake for 31 hours straight. When she walked onto the Family Feud stage on the morning of March 14, 2023, she scored 196 points in fast money, 4 points short of winning $20,000. When Steve Harvey read the final number, Diana's knees buckled and she collapsed to the floor of the stage. Not from disappointment, not from exhaustion, though she hadn't slept in over a day. She collapsed because her 7-year-old daughter Lily was in a hospital room 40 miles away, connected to machines, waiting on a bone marrow treatment that cost $22,400, that their insurance had denied 3 times, and that Diana had exactly 11 days to pay for before the hospital canceled the procedure. Steve Harvey watched her go down. He froze. He walked to the edge of the podium, looked down at her on the floor, and then he did something that had never happened in the 45-year history of the show. He kneeled down beside her, put his hand on her shoulder, and he whispered 4 words. Those 4 words, and what came next, would be seen by more than 300 million people before the year was out. It was a Tuesday morning, and the Family Feud studio in Atlanta was moving the way it always did. Lights warming, cue cards shuffled, audience filing in with the familiar mix of excitement and nerves. The production team had done this thousands of times. Steve Harvey had done this thousands of times. He came out in a deep burgundy suit, took his mark, smiled at the audience, and said something about it being a good day to win money. The crowd laughed. The families were introduced. On one side, the Morrison family, 5 siblings from Tennessee, loud and loose, already hugging each other and pointing at the lights. On the other side, the Reyes family, Diana, her younger brother Marco, her Aunt Carmen, her cousin Jose, and her neighbor Patrice, who had driven Diana to the airport at 4 in the morning because Diana didn't have money for a cab. Diana smiled when Steve said her name. Her smile was the kind that takes practice. It reached her lips and stopped exactly there. But nobody in that studio knew what Diana Reyes was carrying into that room with her. Diana had been a medical billing specialist in Houston, Texas, for 11 years. She knew exactly how the system worked. She knew the language it used, the timelines it followed, the ways it found to say no. She thought that knowledge would protect her. She thought wrong. Lily was diagnosed with aplastic anemia in the fall of 2021. Lily was 5 years old. The diagnosis came on a Thursday. Diana received the call in the parking lot of a Walgreens and sat in her car for 40 minutes before she could drive. Aplastic anemia is a condition where the bone marrow stops producing enough blood cells. Left untreated, it is fatal. The treatment, an allogeneic bone marrow transplant, costs between $300,000 and $800,000. Insurance, in cases like Lily's, was supposed to cover it, and at first it did. Diana had coverage through her employer. Everything was approved. Lily was placed on the transplant list. Diana started telling herself that things were going to be okay. Then, she was laid off. A hospital system acquisition, a restructuring, 11 years ended in a conference room in 20 minutes. Her COBRA coverage ran out 8 weeks later. By the time she found new insurance through the marketplace, Lily's condition had progressed to a severity level that her new carrier classified as a pre-existing condition exclusion. Diana appealed. The first appeal was denied with language she would come to memorize. Treatment deemed not medically necessary given current patient presentation. She hired a patient advocate. The second appeal, filed with a letter from Lily's oncologist and 3 supporting peer-reviewed studies, was denied in 9 days, documentation insufficient to override original determination. Diana sat at her kitchen table at 11 at night and read that sentence 14 times. She didn't cry, she just read it. The third appeal, filed by a healthcare attorney Diana paid $1, $800 she did not have, was denied in 6. Claim denied. No further appeals available under this policy. Diana had $4,200 in savings. She had sold her car and was taking the bus to work. She had listed her grandmother's gold earrings on Facebook Marketplace and made $340. She was working her full-time billing job from 7 to 4, then cleaning office buildings from 6 to midnight 3 nights a week, then driving for a rideshare app on weekend mornings. She had lost 14 pounds in 4 months. She told Lily she was on a health kick. She told her mother everything was under control. She told Marco not to worry. She told Patrice she was fine, just tired, just busy, just figuring things out. One night she thought Lily was asleep and sat at the kitchen table and put her face in her hands. She didn't make any sound. She was past the point of making sound. And then a small voice came from the hallway. 7 words, in the voice of a child who should not have had to know this question. Mama, why do you cry when you think I'm sleeping? Diana said she was fine. Just excited, baby. Go back to sleep. It was Marco who had entered Diana's name in the family feud casting lottery 8 months earlier, because he thought it would be fun, because she needed something to look forward to. Because she used to watch the show every night when they were kids, and it was the thing she and their father had done together before he died. He told Diana when the acceptance letter came, and Diana stared at it for a long time. She thought about the fast money prize. $20,000 would not cover the transplant, but it would cover the treatment protocol they needed to begin in the next 2 weeks to keep Lily stable enough to even be a candidate. $20,000 was the difference between a door that stayed open and one that closed permanently. She did not tell the producers why she needed the money. She did not tell them about Lily. She filled out the paperwork. She got on the plane. She sat next to Marco on the flight, and when he fell asleep, she did the math again on her phone. She had been doing the math for 6 months. It never came out different, and that wasn't even the part that made Steve cry. Diana played the full game. She was sharp. She knew the answers, and she read the room, and she brought her family with her through every round. When it came time for fast money, Marco played first and scored 139 points. Diana needed 61 points from 5 questions to win. She got 57. She stood at the podium looking at the number 196. 4 points away. She knew exactly what 4 points meant. She had done the math too many times not to know. The audience thought the emotional peak had already happened. They were wrong. Diana's knees went first. Then her hands went to the podium. Then she was on the floor. It happened in less than 3 seconds. Marco caught part of her arm on the way down. The audience went silent in a way it hadn't all episode. Not the usual game show pause, a different kind of silence entirely. 300 people stopped breathing at the same moment. Steve Harvey froze mid-step. His smile disappeared. He placed his cards slowly on the podium. He walked around it. He kneeled down next to Diana Reyes on the floor of the Family Feud stage, and he put his hand on her shoulder. The room held its breath. No one applauded. No one moved. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing. And Steve Harvey, in front of every camera, in front of 300 people, in front of a production that had never stopped filming for anything, whispered 4 words. "I see you, baby," he said it quietly. But the boom mic caught it, and the room, which was already silent, went somewhere deeper than silence. Diana's shoulders moved. She was crying. Not the kind of crying you do when you're sad. The kind you do when you have been holding something for so long that your body finally decides it cannot hold it anymore. Steve stayed where he was. Then he stood up slowly. He turned to the audience. He turned to the cameras. And he said, "Stop everything." A producer took a step toward the stage. Steve held up his hand. This has never happened in the 45-year history of this show. And I don't care. We're going to stop the game for a minute. Because I need to know something. He turned back to Diana, who Marco and Carmen were helping to a chair that a crew member had run onto the stage. Steve walked to her. He pulled up a stool. He sat across from her. He said, "I need to know what's going on with you, not for the cameras, for me. What's going on?" And Diana, who had not told anyone the full story, told Steve Harvey everything. She told it in front of the cameras and the audience and the Morrison family across the stage, who had gone very still. She told him about Lily, about the diagnosis, about the layoff, about the 3 denials, about the attorney, about the earrings, about the bus, about the midnight office buildings, about 11 days. The studio fell completely silent. Steve Harvey took off his glasses. He rubbed his eyes. He placed his glasses on the stool beside him and pressed his handkerchief to his face. His shoulders moved. He was crying. The crew was crying. The Morrison family was crying. A woman in the second row of the audience put her hand over her mouth and didn't take it down. Then Steve said, "Let me tell you something." He said it quietly. He looked at Diana and he said, "In 1985, I was living in my 1976 Ford Tempo. I was showering in gas station bathrooms. I was eating out of trash cans behind restaurants. I had nothing. And nobody, not one person, came to help me. I promised God that if He got me out of that car, I would spend the rest of my life helping people, because I know what it is to be right at the edge and have nobody reach over." He stopped. He looked at Lily's mother. "I was you. 38 years ago, I was you, and somebody should have helped me." So, he stood up. He pulled out his phone. Something hosts never do during tapings. He said it plainly, not performing it, just naming it. He dialed. He put the phone on speaker so the audience could hear it ring. It rang twice. "Marcus, it's Steve. I need you to stop whatever you're doing." A pause. "I have a woman on my stage. Her name is Diana Reyes. She has a daughter named Lily, who is 7 years old and needs a bone marrow transplant in 11 days, and the insurance company said no 3 times. I need you to cut a check. $22,400. Right now. Tonight, another pause. I don't care about that. Find another line. Lily's treatment starts in 11 days, and her mother has been working 3 jobs and hasn't slept in over a day, and she came here because she didn't have anywhere else to go. Yes, call me back in 10 minutes. He put the phone down. The studio fell completely silent, but Steve wasn't done. He turned to Diana and said, "The $20,000 prize? You should have won that. 4 points. You should have won it. So we're going to fix that." He looked at the Morrison family across the stage. Janet Morrison, the oldest of the 5 siblings, was already walking toward Diana with her arms open before Steve finished the sentence. "I want to give both of these families the $20,000 prize today." The audience erupted. Janet Morrison reached Diana and held her. The 2 women stood there, strangers, one of them crying into the other's shoulder, and the audience was on its feet. He wasn't finished. Steve held up his hand. There was more. And what came next shocked even his own producers. He called the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center's patient advocacy line from the stage. He asked them to connect Diana with their financial assistance coordinator that afternoon. He named a specific administrator he knew personally. He said Lily's name 3 times to make sure it was written down correctly. He said, "This little girl is going to get her transplant. That is not a question anymore. That is done." The audience thought it was over. It wasn't. Steve turned to the camera. He broke the 4th wall the way he had promised himself he would when he made that promise in the parking lot of a gas station in Cleveland in 1985. He said, "I want to talk to everyone watching at home. If you are sitting somewhere right now, carrying something that nobody knows about, working 3 jobs, pretending everything is fine, smiling at people who don't know you cried yourself to sleep last night, I want you to hear this. You are not invisible. Your strength does not make you invisible. Somebody sees you. And it is not a weakness to let somebody help you. It is the bravest thing you will ever do." He looked directly into the camera. "You are not alone, baby." When the episode aired 7 weeks later, Diana and Lily were both in the studio audience. Lily had completed the first phase of her transplant protocol. She was wearing a yellow dress, and she held a handmade sign that said "Mr. Steve" in purple marker. The clip of Steve kneeling beside Diana and whispering those 4 words circulated online within hours of broadcast. By the end of that first weekend, it had been viewed 87 million times. Within 60 days, it had passed 200 million. By the end of the year, 314 million. The hashtag #YouAreNotAloneBaby trended in 31 countries. News anchors played the clip at the top of evening broadcasts. It was called the most emotional moment in game show television history by 3 different major outlets. 3 months after that day, Diana received a call from an anonymous donor network that Steve's foundation had connected her with. The full cost of Lily's transplant, $387,000, had been covered through a combination of the MD Anderson Financial Assistance Program, a hospital charity fund, a private donation from a technology executive who had seen the clip, and a crowdfunding campaign that raised $61,000 in its first 48 hours. Diana quit the office cleaning job. She kept the billing job, and she enrolled part-time in a healthcare administration graduate program that had awarded her a scholarship she did not know existed until someone on the Family Feud production team made a call on her behalf. A year after the taping, Lily Reyes was declared in full remission. She was 8 years old. She went back to school. She lost 2 teeth within a week of each other and told her mother they fell out because she had been too excited. Diana took a photograph of Lily smiling with the gap in her teeth and sent it to Steve Harvey's assistant with a note that said, "She's here. She's here because of you." Steve Harvey later said in an interview, "I've hosted that show for years. I've seen a lot. But I have never, in my entire career, gotten on the floor of a stage. I didn't think about it. I just knew I was not going to stand up and look down at that woman. She needed somebody to come down to where she was." Today, the Collapsed Grace Foundation, named after the moment Diana's knees gave out on that stage and the grace that caught her, operates in 7 states. Its mandate is simple. It connects families who have been denied insurance coverage for pediatric medical procedures with legal advocates, hospital financial assistance programs, and donor networks. To date, it has helped more than 400 families navigate insurance denials and has facilitated over $18 million in covered treatments. Lily Reyes, who is now 9 years old, is the foundation's smallest honorary ambassador. She made a 30-second video for the foundation's website. In it, she holds up a drawing she made of a man in a suit kneeling on a stage floor. She says, "This is Mr. Steve. He helped my mama, and my mama helped everybody else." 5 years later, Diana Reyes does not work the midnight office buildings anymore. She does not take the bus. She does not do the math on her phone on airplanes. On the 5th anniversary of that Tuesday morning in Atlanta, Steve Harvey called her. He did not call through an assistant. He dialed her number himself. When she answered, he said, "Happy anniversary, Diana." She laughed. She said, "You remember?" He said, "I remember every single thing about that day." There is a version of this story where Diana Reyes scored 4 more points on a game show and won $20,000 and went home and figured the rest out alone. There is a version where she held herself together and nobody ever knew. That version exists. It exists because Diana Reyes had been holding herself together for 16 months without anyone to catch her. The version that actually happened is the one where her knees gave out and someone got on the floor beside her instead of asking her to stand back up. Some moments in a life are not about strength. They are about finally being allowed to be seen. If this story about a mother who carried an invisible burden and the moment someone finally looked down and said, "I see you," moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to know that their silence does not make them invisible. Have you ever been carrying something that nobody around you could see? Let us know in the comments and ring that notification bell for more stories that remind us what it looks like when one human being refuses to walk past another.